Gagasi FM, Sanbanani, good morning. This is Elevate right here on Gagasi FM. Today we're hanging out with Mr. Arnold Phillips, aka
Aewon Wolf.
Aewon Wolf.
That's my real name.
That's the real name.
That's the real
So
name.
Arnold is the AKA.
Yeah, Arnold is the AKA, 100%.
How are you doing, man?
I'm good at you?
Very good, man. Very good. I haven't seen you in a long time.
Yes, it's been a long minute. I think you see me sooner than most, actually.
Yeah.
A
you
lot
serious?
a lot of people haven't seen me in a long time. I've disappeared deliberately for a long time, but I think you saw me sooner than a lot of other people.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
So you can hide, eh?
It's a superpower. It's not even deliberate. I just keep to myself.
Yeah.
It's not. I don't even try to hide. But I just tend to keep myself. I don't even really go to malls and stuff. Like if I go to a mall, I'm going specifically to go in and out of where.
Yeah, you're a genuine guy. I call it window shop.
Yeah.
100%. So if you remember Aewon Wolf, he is the guy behind Abo Sketchy Bongo. I saw you a week ago. Global already. A lot of things, and there was a Durban movement of music. Abantu abaningi would mention a lot of songs that came out of Durban. This is the guy who was behind all of that. No, you grew up Konala Tegwini. You were born and raised, I think, the first 4 years of your life.
First 4 years
in Tuzum.
Yeah.
Kai.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah.
I would have never pegged you for a guy who was in Tuzum.
Yeah, no, even myself. But it's where. So it was my grandmother's home and where my mother lived and where I was born, basically. I was born in St. Aidan's, but it's first 4 years of my life. And my earliest memories were actually quite hectic. Growing up Duzuma, because it was actually the time of the ANC IFP beefs, and we were like borderland between two.
Yeah, I think in the at that particular time, because I remember my parents, because me and you were born in the same year. My parents would take me and my brother to family friends, Kwachi.
Oh, that was the safer.
That was a bit safer.
Oh,
because I was F, you were E.
Oh, that's
it's like right in the middle, like a neutral place.
Oh, okay. See, I didn't even remember the intricacies of that because we left in time. I won't say in time, but we left not enough to sit back and actually understand what was going on, because I was a child. Like I was way too small. But like I said, the earliest memories were like you hear gunshots, you know the procedure.
Yeah.
Go straight to the bath, and we sit in the bath. It was turned to a game, actually. Like it almost felt like a game to me as a kid.
Yeah.
You know, there was also this another procedure that we had in the family. And this is crazy that we had these procedures and they felt normal. And now with hindsight and looking as an adult,
this is not a normal life.
It's not a normal life, you know, like if the knock was too hard, like at the door, you knew you had to hide.
Yeah.
Like there used to be like if someone's knocking just slightly too hard, then it's like, okay, no, something's wrong. Kids, get out and don't open the door.
Don't ask
worst
questions.
thing, don't even if you're a child, don't even say anything. An adult will ask, who's there? You know, like that was and now you understand, like it was because it's that kind of time. And then the stories that my brother and my mother tell me afterwards, like all the stuff going on, it all made sense.
So you are a part of a very big family, and it's a very diverse family. It spans from KZN to Lesotho and many other parts.
Yeah.
And tell us about that family. How was it like growing up in such a diverse family?
It's quite crazy growing up in my family. To be honest, it's like because it's so diverse, we have like a lot of family in Joburg, a lot of family. Obviously, I've got family in Durban. But funny enough, the family in Durban, as much as I grew up in Durban, we didn't really get to know much of our KZN family.
Yeah.
And also specifically because of, traditions wise, like traditionally, technically my father stole my mother.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So
your life is a movie.
So her family would not want to entertain us as a family because we weren't really, like the procedures weren't done. Because my father is like anti-traditional. if you want to put it that way. So he was like, I'm not going to pay any damages. I'm not going to pay the water. I'm not going to. He pretty much, according to tradition, is he stole it.
Damn.
So we didn't really get to know our family, even from the context of now, even being older, and understand certain things as well from my grandmother's side as well. My grandmother situation with her husband, my grandfather, wasn't great neither. So the KZN, like there's a whole Langa family that is actually my family, like
but you don't have
cousins and people that I know. Funny enough, I've met them, but I'm not even gonna I haven't really wanted to point out and say, hey, listen, do you realize that you are my cousin? But it's not for them to know, because the Langa family is actually like a pretty well-known family on this side. So it's not as if it's something that I couldn't find out, and my mother's one that pointed out, and I pieced it together because there's one particular Langa that's super famous, and she was like, that's my uncle. That is my father's brother. And and that super famous Langa has obviously grandkids and kids and so forth. And I was just like,
damn,
those are my cousins, and they don't even know it. But that's because my father my grandfather, my mother's father, my grandmother and him didn't get along. I don't know if whether she was, they officially divorced, but she had the surname Langa, so I'm guessing they divorced because she had his surname. But it was apparently not amicable, and also like traumatic for my mother. So
do you think you'll ever get to a point where you can have a conversation with the other side of the family? I mean, the Langa side.
I'm not really checking for it, to be honest. Like, it's not that I don't want it. I just, especially when I became famous as Aewon Wolf, I had a lot of cousins pop up.
That's true.
I had a lot of cousins.
It's like winning the lotto.
Yeah. So and when those cousins popped up, it wasn't always good. It wasn't always good. Like, they always had like something, that they needed, or something that they expected support on, or something. And I'm not blaming them. It's understandable, like people always looking out for help from family. And I happen to be in that position or that limelight at that point. So it's like, I realized quickly that I'm kind of good with the cousins I grew up with and that I know. And I'm not trying to really check for necessarily more family. If they do pop up, I'm grateful. And that's
genuinely so.
Yeah. And that's good enough for me. Yeah.
You mentioned that your dad wasn't a very traditional man.
Yeah.
Do you think that aided or abetted in you, in your growing up? Are you a traditional person? Would you like to be a bit more traditional if you're not? It's a mouthful.
It's actually quite interesting, because my father is very much anti, like I said, traditional things, but also not like, he was anti us doing it, but not against it. So he'd like embrace it, and we'd attend like Musevians and things like that, but like, we must not participate. We must not be a part of that, because as well, like, there's also a Catholic background as well there that played into it. But it's more of, I think for him, he just I think with his diverse background, or diverse where he came from in terms of his family situation, it was something that they were not too hardcore on, because like, my mother being a Zulu woman and being very much a Zulu woman and like, when it comes to Zulu, we don't play about a tradition.
Yeah.
So he felt like he had to kick back on that, because he's like, no, if anything, these kids are going to be Sutu. And that's the tradition. But I'm not fighting that neither, because there's other traditions that we should also observe, but we're not really observing in our family.
And should embrace.
Yeah. So it was a matter of, he didn't stop us from experiencing a lot of things. We experienced a lot of the traditional things, but we couldn't get, like, I remember my mother secretly taking us out one day to get the cuts.
Nanocaba.
Yeah. So I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but now if my father sees this, it doesn't really matter now.
You're a grown man
But like
now.
we were young. We got it everywhere, you know, and we had to hide it.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
How do you hide?
We had to hide it because like she knew that he was not about that life, and he'd be very mad about it. Because that's exactly the kind of stuff he wanted to keep us away from. He's like, I don't mind you guys embracing anything, but as long as it doesn't
affect my family.
Yeah. And that was like, to him, like that's a violation. Like someone to actually like put a blade to his kids. He probably would have killed that person, but anyway.
Do you think you are perhaps similar to him in your take on tradition, or?
No, I'm for me, like I think I'm very different in the sense that I've gone through a lot of different phases, if you want to put them that way, or spiritual journeys. Funny, when I was young, I supposedly had the calling when I was young. Yeah. So my grandmother took me to a sangoma. I don't even know where this was, but
without your dad knowing, I assume.
Yeah, without my dad knowing. And she took me somewhere. I don't even know where this was. This is like deep. It's like deep in Umla's where it becomes like rural.
Perhaps it's like Ngonyame inside.
I'm not even sure. Like I few years back, I went past there and I'm like, this looks familiar. This looks like that place that she took me. Because the longest time I didn't even know where it was. Because I was like, I think I was like 11, somewhere 9, between 9 and 11, somewhere there, when my grandmother was still like taking care of me. And she took me and I was like oblivious, like, where are we going? You just jump to one taxi, jump to another taxi, and you just ended up this place. And when we got there, it was like the lady did a few things and she supposedly removed the calling from me. I didn't know that was possible. But clearly you can do things if you pay for it. But
money talks.
Let's not talk.
Money talks.
But anyway, so that was like when I was younger, because there was things I was doing when I was young that didn't make sense to my grandmother, my family, whatever. So they found out that it was supposedly a calling, whatever. To me, as a kid, I just thought it was like cool, because I used to sleepwalk. I thought, oh, wow, that's that's cool. That makes me special. And I'd sleepwalk with like seeing things that I wasn't supposed to see, things that my mother was seeing. So there was a connection with my mother. And I mean, it's funny now that I'm older and I've watched a million podcasts, because there's some things you just never will understand. And like I said, I'm not a traditional person, so I'm not assuming that it's, the ancestors who are forcing me these visions and stuff. But it's like, the more that I watch podcasts and scientists, and I'm very fascinated by quantum physics. And it's funny because what I experience, like quantum physics is kind of like explaining now. There's a thing called quantum entanglement, which kind of will explain why I was like...
My quantum physics is a culmination of watching Big Bang Theory, so don't go too much.
Yeah, so I'll just brush over it. So basically, long story short, this quantum entanglement is now proving that you can have two separate electrons, completely opposite in different places, having the exact same experience. And obviously,
like opposite universe, like multiverse.
It can be, it can be in the other side of this, in this universe, in the same universe, but it can be the other side of the universe. But if this one goes right, that other one goes right.
It'll mirror each other.
Yeah, they'll mirror each other, even though they're like separate, completely separate. And that's something that science has proven now with quantum physics, and is actually a thing. So it's like, I can see how I could have experienced or done the same things that my mother was doing somewhere else completely different, because she was like doing stuff somewhere else, and then I would say I saw this in the dream, and this is, and they'd be like, how how did you know that happened there at the same time? It's like, it's possible, you know. It's like I can't explain it. Something happened to me as a kid as well, and with imagination, I could have been directed. So it could be also just in my head type of thing. So I'm not quick to jump to spiritual and say that it's just spirits, you know. But at the same time, I don't dismiss there is things that we can't explain.
But one thing I think that a lot of people, including myself, can agree on is that you are super talented and you
Thanks.
have done. I think a lot of people, when they see a person being successful in music, that's good. But if you can be able to be successful and other people follow you in that route and you are able to guide other people,
Yeah.
for me, that's, I think, a bigger, much more success. And you've managed to do that with the likes of Sketchy Bongo, the Wolfpack, and many other people. Tell us about that endeavor. How did you venture into that? I know you've told the story many times, but just venture into the bit. Just wangena kanjani kule ndima yomculo, and how you decided to say, I'm going to use my talents and gifts into this thing yomculo.
Yeah. So that came naturally because I think I always had the creative side or the creative spirit since I was a child. There's even a picture of me as a child in my dad's club with a mic. I don't remember it, but there's a picture and a story. Apparently, I grabbed the mic and I was on the mic at the club when I was very small. So maybe that's the performer in me. But there's also the side of me that always was good with like creating things, like just wanted to create. Like I'd literally make whole universes in my head and coordinate little stories that we play as kids and make into stories. And then so that was in me since I was very small. And then when it came time to obviously become an adult, I did the law thing. I studied law and I graduated. And when I graduated, I said, I'm going into music because music was the one thing that I knew I had an avenue into. And I wanted to do film actually before I did law. So I still planned to do film and something creative. I just wanted, that's my full-time life is going to be film
in the creative space
and music.
Yeah.
Anything creative. So music was the one thing that kind of formed itself into something at the time I finished school. So then straight after school, I spent 2 years under JR in just after Make the Circle Bigger. So Make the Circle Bigger was like the biggest song in the country at that time. I think it was like the unofficial World Cup song.
It was.
It was ridiculously massive. And JR was obviously the guy behind it. So he's in a lot of spaces and he was like that guy. And he digged what I was doing with my music and he like took us on as an act in Joburg. There were other labels that were interested at this time. I'm skipping a whole lot of stuff, backstory. But I'm just going to this part because this is the most important part. So in that time with JR, I learned a lot. And we spent 2 years. I lived with him and then lived with our manager and lived with different people in Joburg. Struggling in Joburg, but surviving, you know, but just
because the passion is there.
Yeah.
You're chasing the dream.
It's the dream. But no one's going to tell you about the couch surfing part and all that other stuff. But it was a struggle, but at the same time, like I appreciated I had JR. You know, JR was like that big brother, that guy who was like, he literally would pay for our meals, pay for our transportation, like put us in studio, everything. Like
shout out to JR.
What to this day, like I still say he's the most underrated or the most underappreciated artist in the South African music industry. Like that guy's impact in the game is ridiculously like high, but people don't really appreciate because it's not just me that he did this for.
There's plenty other people,
plenty more. And if guys went in their feelings and were honest, they'd tell.
They'd appreciate it.
They'd appreciate it. But that's another story. So anyway, in this time, so I had that 2 years. So at the end of it, being young and being obviously overly ambitious and saying nothing's happening, why is nothing happening in 2 years? And then We were meant to drop an album, and then things happened, and we didn't drop the album. He said, no, going back home, going back to Durban, because at Durban, at least I know how to make money. Because at that point, when I finished varsity, I'd hustled and started run DBN. I was doing events, and those events made me money. And that's how I used to hustle and make money. So I was like, nah, going back, family needs me, because now I'm not able to contribute and help, and things were tough. And at that point, my father was out and like leaving, and he left for Lesotho. And basically, yeah, my family needed someone to hold things down. So I made the decision, conscious decision, I'm coming back home to take care and help out my siblings and my mother and just get things going, because Joburg is just not happening. When I came back, had a meeting with Sketchy, I'll never forget it. Like both of us like connected again, and I was like, because we used to produce for me like before that, way before that, and he stopped. And then I got new producers. It was WTF Charlie, you know.
Witness the Fun.
Witness the Funk Charlie and Muzi. I don't know if you know Muzi. He's like a big DJ producer now. Yeah. So they were my producers.
It's so funny how people can go way back, and when you see them years later, you don't even make the connection.
You'll never make. So they had become my producers. So even when I came back, I left them with JR. They're like, okay, because JR wanted them to produce for him. So it was like, and they worked with him, and they were working with him, and obviously things grew for them that way. But I came back. Sketchy. I was like, listen, bro, I want to do the solo thing, because I was in a group at that point with another guy named Tuko. Cool guy, but he also, like, at that point used to have his own ideas and plans, and he would like vocalize them. So he would like fight with people. So even in the time in Joburg, like things used to get heated, because he'd fight with the engineer who was like taking time with producing and taking time with mixing our projects and all that stuff, and then he'd get angry, and then he'd like call it out, and I was always the guy who cooled things down. Anyway, because I'm trying to give context, because this will help people, trust me. So when I came back, I was like, I can't have that, and I can't blame him, because that's him. That's his personality. And he's not a bad guy. He's just very honest, and he's very like vocal about how he feels. But I can't have that. I can't be sitting here blaming him and say, that didn't work out because he fought with so-and-so. So I'm going to have to be accountable to myself. And I never wanted to be a solo artist. I didn't want to be a solo artist. I fought it my whole life. But I was like, this time I have to do it for myself, so I don't blame anyone but myself. So I said, Sketchy, I'm doing this thing. I'm calling it Aewon Wolf. And he wasn't even Sketchy Bong at that time. He was just UV Ray. and I'm like, let's do this thing. You're gonna be my producer. Like, come up with the character. He came up with the character. Down the line is like, I got this character Sketchy Bong. I'm like, cool. So you're gonna be my DJ. So we're gonna do this together. Aewon Wolf and Sketchy Bong. Lo and behold, we started like tinkering and started making stuff. Our stuff started sounding like pretty cool. We created our own scene. There was a club called Origin.
Yeah.
That was very much like a white club.
I think it's still there.
Well, it's still around, yeah. So it was very much a white club, but we were like, no, we're gonna infiltrate that club, because the promoter there was like a friend of mine. Because I'd done stuff in the Durban hip hop scene, and for me, I was like, it's gonna be a long way away before they get the stuff that we were doing. Because they were very much still like
in the hardcore hip hop
mentality, and we were doing alternative stuff. We were doing very weird stuff. So I was like, we're gonna find an audience there
somewhere,
because those guys are open to like weird stuff, and that's what they love. So we went there and we infiltrated with a guy named George Christos. He had a thing called Uber Cool Events, and he used to host, and he like gave us a slot, and we used to perform there. So we built a little like subculture following that we had.
Like a small community.
Small community. And then we started getting like small attention from like the blogs. This was early blogging days. Like blogs didn't even want a thing really. But like there was some new blogs coming up. and they had some clout, and they digged what we were doing because we were like counterculture. We were doing our own thing, and we introduced a thing called trap. At that time, trap was not
a thing in South Africa.
It wasn't even big in America yet. That's how crazy it was. It wasn't big in America. It was like still like this very sub culture, and it wasn't even the trap that we know today. It was a different kind of. There's a trap that's EDM trap, and it's like a subculture. So there's DJ named Bauer who actually created this, or was one of the bigger figureheads in this culture, and it was called trap at that time. And the conventional trap wasn't even talked about yet. It was only T.I. who used the term trap at that point.
And pioneered sort of the move.
Yeah. And at that time, it was very much still that, what is it called? That thing that Lil Jon used to do? Crunk.
Yeah, crunk music.
Crunk music was what was big in hip-hop.
Yeah.
So we were like, we're not really crunk. We don't really like, we dig the energy of crunk, but that's not us.
Yeah.
Trap was infusing so-called crunk into EDM. And then suddenly out of nowhere, we found there's an actual genre called trap also on the come up. That was hip hop.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, geez,
coincidence.
We just gonna work with all of that, you know?
Yeah.
And we literally just built this subgenre of like alternative kids, and it was the most mixed crowd you'll ever get in Durban, because Durban never gets mixed crowds. I don't know, it's sad. Even to this day, I still don't see us mixing like the way I believe we can. But that was the most mixed crowd you'll ever find. It became this huge, unique thing. That
and I think it was and I think it was mixed in the sense that for context, it was mixed in the sense of age, of gender, race.
Yeah.
It was mixed in every sense you can think.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And it's like, you really couldn't put a finger on it. It was just like young people. That's all you could say. It was just like a youth movement.
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Aewon Wolf, aka Arnold Phillips. The AKA is the ID name, ne? So this coming weekend, coming up, man, it's Aewon Wolf. He's back in the scene, is back in the game with a song titled We See You, featuring the Wolfpack Orchestra and Choir. So I think it will be found where music is sold, everywhere.
Everywhere music is sold. Yeah.
Where do we search, find, and follow you? Thank you so much for joining us and helping us to indulge. I didn't know this rich history. And by the way, we literally scratched the surface.
Scratched the surface. It's just too much. I've lived a long life and a lot.
I want more 88. Yeah, my 80s. Wait.
Yeah. I'm telling you, the 80s were a great time.
Yeah, very, very turbulent times.
Yeah, a lot of people who were born in the 80s actually have like quite the unique histories. Actually.
It is.
Yeah.
It is really.
Yeah.
I was fun number 2000. 2000. Tell me, where do we follow you?
Just search at Aewon Wolf. You'll find me everywhere. Actually, let me not say that on social media because I deleted social media a while back. But then I'm still available on Instagram, X. They call it X now.
Yeah.
Twitter. Yeah. Facebook. I don't even know what are the platforms. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Facebook, X, Instagram. There's Threads. There's TikTok. There's
at
so many
Aewon
other
Wolf.
things.
You'll always find if I'm there, it'll be at Aewon Wolf.
Thank you so much.